What's up, everybody? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel, and then follow me on social media on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter so you guys don't miss any of our content over the course of this season. All right, let's talk some basketball. This was a comment that was on the breakout clip that we did from the Suns-Wolves game last night. LOL, this dude is now saying that the game played out exactly as he said, but he literally picked the Suns to win. Don't change up now. So I know the vast majority of you guys are not like this. So I promise that I appreciate and I'm thankful for the most of you guys being able to sift through this and understand. But I always have to clarify this every year when we get to the postseason. I make predictions because it's my job. Okay. All of these series are really close. As a matter of fact, with the exception of the Nuggets series and the Celtics series, I think every single the Nuggets, Celtics, and Pelicans, Thunder. So 5 of the 8 series were in the 100s in terms of how much the favorite is favored. So they were favored by somewhere between minus 105 and minus 195. Every single one of these series. So they're all coin flips, okay? I'm going to make a prediction anyway because that's my job. And in the predictions, what do I always do? I tell you guys, here's what I think is going to happen as a guess. Here's my reasoning for why. However, if the other team wins, here is their pathway. I do that for every single one of these series. That's what I did for the Wolves. I picked the Suns to win because in the regular season, the Suns dominated the Wolves. I had basketball evidence to back that up. In the process, I did say I expected it to go 6 games because the Wolves are such a good defense and they're so physical, right? But in the process, I broke down the reasons why. Frank Vogel has a really good game plan. His game plan of the aggressive coverages against Ant and the passive coverages against Conley plays the two of them into their worst tendencies, and the Wolves tend to fall apart offensively. That was the evidence that I used to make my prediction, right? But those of you guys who watched the series preview, you saw exactly what I said in the "if the Wolves win, this is what they need to do" segment. I literally said they need Jaden McDaniels to give them scoring pop. What did Jaden McDaniels do in game 2? Gave them scoring pop. They need Mike Conley to beat the passive coverages by being aggressive as a scorer. That is what he did in the second quarter run that led to the adjustment, that led to him picking them apart in the pocket passes in the fourth quarter. I said Anthony Edwards has to beat Vogel's coverage with pull-up jump shooting in decision-making against their kind of loaded-up coverages. In game 1, he beat it with pull-up shooting, and in game 2, he beat it with playmaking. And then lastly, I said they cannot let the Suns get into rotation. They need to stay home off the ball as much as possible and try to defend the actions 1-on-1 and 2-on-2. So I laid out the pathway for both teams. By the way, this series is not over. I do believe now that Minnesota will win. Phoenix's process has been so bad in these first 2 games, I don't think they're even close to figuring this out. And so I do believe Minnesota will win. But I made that prediction before the series based on evidence. Phoenix does still have a chance. If Phoenix goes home and they do take advantage of those smarter reads, and they do get the ball in rotation and start generating higher quality shots, and they up their assist percentage to where it was in the regular season, and then their defensive game plan works better, I do think they can get back in this series. In fact, I do think they'll get at least 1 in Phoenix, and I think there's a decent chance they get 2. I just don't think Phoenix can do it 4 times in 5 tries now. So I do believe Minnesota will come back to win. But again, I'm saying this now because I'm going to make 4 more predictions in the second round, and 2 more in the conference finals, and 1 more in the NBA finals. All of these are mostly coin flips. I picked the Mavs to beat the Clippers. You're insane if you don't think the Clippers can beat the Mavs. Of course they're capable of it. That series is razor thin, right? Like let's take the Pacers Bucks series. That series is going to be close. The Knicks Sixers series, I really do think the Sixers are going to go home and win 2 games and tie that series. All these series are really, really close. So I'm going to make a prediction. If I pick against your team, it doesn't mean I don't like your team. It doesn't mean I don't believe your team can win. I'm going to base my prediction on some basketball evidence, and then I'm also going to lay out the pathway for how the Wolves can win. I wasn't trying to take a victory lap last night on the show. All I was saying is, wow, this is interesting. I thought that if the Wolves won, this is what it would look like, and it's literally what's happening. I find that fascinating from a basketball perspective. Every team goes into matchups in a playoff series with advantages and disadvantages. And the team that best capitalizes on their advantages and hides their disadvantages is going to be the team that wins the series. And so far, through 2 games, the Minnesota Timberwolves have done a masterful job of playing, of confronting their own weaknesses and playing well in those situations. Jaden scoring, Mike Conley scoring, Anthony Edwards hitting pull-up jumpers and making passing reads. And Phoenix is playing into the worst version of themselves, right? So, like, again, I want to be clear. I know the vast majority of you guys give me that leeway, but for that small segment that seems to think that every prediction I make is me like staking my entire reputation as an analyst on the outcome of a series, that's fucking stupid. That's just not how this works. I'm giving you guys predictions because it's my job. I'm going to give my case, but I'm always going to give a case for the other side as well. I'm not rooting against the Timberwolves. I simply just made a call based on evidence in the regular season. And I think we can all agree that in the regular season, the Suns gave the Timberwolves issues. Are we seriously going to pretend that isn't the case? Of course that was the case. They've just managed to flip the script on all of that stuff to have success in this series. Next question. How do you feel about a healthy Lonzo Ball on this Timberwolves team? Love the breakdowns. Keep it up. You know, I actually, again, just looking at it through the lens of a healthy Lonzo Ball, I love the fit. Excellent perimeter defender, more of a playmaking, pace-pushing, kick-ahead, Tyrese Halliburton-esque kind of like read maker in the half court and in transition. And he turned himself into a really good catch-and-shoot player. I don't think you could conceive of a better two-guard to fit your timeline post Mike Conley. I think that makes a ton of sense. The question is, can Lonzo Ball get healthy? And that's where it gets tricky. But I thought that was a really interesting suggestion. And I would love to see Lonzo have a career renaissance in a place like Minnesota. I feel like a major part of the Mavs' fourth quarter success was Russell Westbrook making a ton of bad defensive decisions for no reason. I know very little about the X's and O's of basketball, but sagging off Kyrie and losing Luka or going for a random steal isn't the smartest idea when you're trying to close the gap. So that's always the case with Russ. Russ is the textbook good play, bad play guy. And it's always a scale with him. And sometimes the scale tips towards good plays more than bad. And sometimes it tilts towards bad plays more than good. When he was with the Lakers, more often than not, the bad plays were winning out. With the Clippers, for the most part, the good plays have been winning out. He did make a couple of bad defensive decisions down the stretch of that game. He doubled from Kyrie one pass away when clearly it wasn't schemed for because Kawhi wasn't ready for it as the next rotation. And then he gambled on Luka once and gave in a post-up and gave him a downhill opportunity that led to an easy kick-out pass for a PJ Washington 3. So, yeah, he did make some mistakes. I just think the good that Russ brought to the table last night outweighed the bad. Don't you think it's interesting how because of the Wolves' insane perimeter defense on the big three and their ball pressure, a lot of these end-of-possession grenades go to Nurkic on an island against Gobert? How else can you beat lockdown perimeter defense like that at the end of the shot clock? So I'm just going to take this in a different direction. I thought Gobert in general, switching on pick and rolls late in the shot clock, was a huge part of Minnesota's defensive success in games 1 and 2. Essentially, he's meeting them up high and following them into the lane. And yeah, some of those are getting dropped off to Nurkic in late clock situations, but a lot of them, the guard is then pulling Gobert out and then trying to ISO against him. And Gobert is just doing an amazing job on those ISOs. Again, we talk a lot about Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I even think Mike Conley's done a really good job defensively in this series. But Rudy Gobert is one of the top 5 defensive anchors in the world, and he pulls it all together for them. Steph has a down month on his stats, and he is no longer top 10 and is no longer in his prime. Recency bias is crazy. So I wanted to clarify this. First of all, Steph's rough end to the season was actually a few months long. But I'm doing the exact same thing to Steph that I did with LeBron. LeBron showed a dip in his production and effectiveness last year. And so I moved him way down the playoff. I think I had him 8th or 9th in my player rankings this year. Steph has really struggled as of late, But I still think he's a top 10 player. He just wasn't playing like a top 10 player over the last couple months of the season. He was in the low 20s of points per game and really inefficient by his standards, right? But after this season, yeah, I'm probably going to put Steph in the 5 to 10 range, similar to what I did to LeBron last year. But you're right. Steph absolutely can bounce back. And if Steph did what LeBron did at the end of the year this year, LeBron at the end of the year this year came in hot. And like was the only player in the league post deadline that was averaging at least 27 points per game on at least 50% from the field and 40% from three. He's one of only 5 players in this postseason run so far to average at least 25 points per game on at least 50% from the field and at least 40% from three. He's also averaging 10 assists per game in this postseason run. He's going toe-to-toe with Nikola Jokic at the end of basketball games. Like, LeBron's just playing at an extremely high level right now. So I have moved him back up the list. By the way, I'll save the LeBron piece for the last question because we're going to get to that in a second. But if Steph goes into next season and starts looking like Steph again, of course I'm going to move him back up the list. I'm not burying Steph Curry. I'm just saying strictly within right now, Steph has shown a little bit of a sign of decline and towards the tail end of the season wasn't playing very well. So yeah, I'm going to drop him down the player rankings temporarily, but knowing Steph, knowing how much of a competitor he is, I fully expect that at some point in October, November, December next year, I'm going to be like, holy shit, Steph's a top 5 player again. I thoroughly expect to do that. But you know, in the same way that I dropped Luka, remember when I dropped Luka to 10? I dropped him to 10 because his team didn't even make the playoffs and he didn't play very good defense down the stretch. He did a lot of pouting, a lot of complaining at refs. Wasn't a pretty end of the season for Luka. I look at my player rankings as a constantly sliding scale and I prioritize playoff production. And so again, like with Steph, definitely not burying him, fully expect him to make a return to the top, near the top of the league. But for right now, he doesn't get to make that claim because a bunch of guys played better than him down the stretch of the season. Lastly, love your content, but you're biased towards LeBron if you think he's the third best player in the NBA right now. I want to be clear. I don't think LeBron is the third best player in a vacuum to start a season with, right? No one's going to take LeBron from early October through June in the top 3. However, we don't have to make it from October to April anymore. We're in April right now, and LeBron is healthy right now, and LeBron is playing at that level right now, and Giannis is hurt right now, and Joel Embiid is hurt right now. And so if I look at the group of players strictly within the lens of this postseason run, Jokic is a clear number 1. Luka is a clear number 2. Tell me who's the third. Who's the guy in this playoff field that is clearly playing better two-way basketball than LeBron James right now? Tell me. I want to hear about it. Maybe we can debate it over the course of the next week through mailbag questions. But like, I'm just saying strictly right now in this postseason, because I don't have to worry about 82 games and I don't have to worry. By the way, LeBron had an amazing season, but this was the lower end of the outcome. We all knew coming into the season that it was unlikely that LeBron would just be super healthy throughout the whole thing after how he kind of struggled to stay healthy in the previous few years. We got the small end of that outcome, which is LeBron stays healthy. Here we are. We're in the postseason. LeBron's playing fucking awesome in the first round against Denver. So like, that's kind of where my rationale is. But yeah, when we're ranking players this offseason, I'm not going to have LeBron at number 3 because of the 82 game grind and whether or not he can hold up on for his 22nd season that way.